There's no straight answer to this question because various organizations introduce HR at different stages of their own life cycle. So let me take a minute to explain what are the various stages that a business organization passes through. As we all know, every organization, possibly the first stage is a startup stage. They just get started. And after they stabilize, pass through the startup stage, then they'll get into this growth stage. Now, once the growth stage is also, passed through, then organization experiences kind of a stability that, my business model is worked and it has grown and it's going good. So it's a kind of a mature stage. And once the mature stage is experienced, the promoter starts feeling a little more ambition. And that is when we start expanding the business. Maybe you add more products, more services, or more geographies, whatever it is. And that also, if it is successful, and the organization passes through several years of that glory, but then a stage comes where you need to start looking back and start feeling whether the same model, same way of running this business is going to be relevant for the future or not. Or you may have to just sit back and start renewing yourself, reinventing yourself. So that's what we call it as a renewal stage. So the startup stage, growth stage, maturity stage, expansion stage, and renewal stage. So at various stages, there are different set of HR priorities. So if you ask me when to introduce HR is definitely required from the very first stage onwards, but with different set of priorities. At a very initial stage of the startup, let's just imagine, in the practice, there is a person, a promoter, a founder who comes with a great idea, which he or she wants to experiment. And the first thing that you need is, apart from you may need a few other kind of people who buy into this idea. So the initial challenge at that stage of startup is getting a bunch of like-minded people, passionate people to work with you so that the startup idea flourishes. So the first and foremost is spotting such excited, passionate kind of team members. So it's a talent acquisition at the very initial stage. And usually the policies and the timings and all that are fairly flexible at that stage. So we don't really drive too much of HR policy framework at that stage. It's more about let's collectively come together and make something work. So the whole spirit is just acquire talent at that stage. Now comes the next phase, which is the growth phase. Now, from that startup stage where your idea got tested and it is going good, now you want to really expand a little more of that, right? So, drive growth. So, when you want to drive growth, you may like to add in more hands, more people, because now you may like to, delegate a few things and you want people to go out and reach out to more potential customers and all of that. So, the next important thing that you will be facing is, how do I expand the talent pool? Yeah. But you do that while retaining the people who started with you, right? That passionate individuals that you acquired, they also need to be with you. Besides that, you're also adding more people. So the talent retention and talent expansion both become very, very crucial. Now here comes a very, very important point which usually a lot of people miss out. Now it's not only you and your bunch of passionate people, there are more people got added to your team. So which means when there is a sizable team, there is a chance of some kind of a dynamics setting in. There is a way that this organization starts developing a sense of character, and which we can call it as a kind of organization culture starts getting formed. Right, which is not only because of you, because there are a bunch of people collectively coming together and working on something. So whether that culture is to your liking or not is something that you need to be very, very careful as a promoter. And if you don't do anything, if you don't focus on any conscious efforts towards culture building, still some culture gets built. That's the interesting part. Cultures are not always built only because of your intervention. Cultures also get built even without any intervention. But if you want a kind of a culture to your liking, which will be very relevant for the future of this organization, then I think that also has to be part of your people agenda. So talent retention, talent expansion, and culture building, those initial steps, they become the important agenda at the growth stage. Now comes a mature stage. Now, when it is a mature stage, usually the whole idea is you want sustained performance. The same thing, what has been proved to be successful has to just keep on going on. In fact, some of the promoters describe this, I want my organization to be running like a well-oiled machine, right? Without too much of my intervention. And when you have that kind of a desire, then you need policies, then you need processes to manage performance, to define performance, to measure performance, to reward performance. And all of that becomes a big chunk during the mature stage. So your entire HR policies, performance management, and training and development, career visibilities, all of that will now start occupying the HR priority space. So therefore, from growth to maturity, now there are much bigger kind of a HR agenda evolving. Now, when you are expanding now, which is the fourth stage, now ambition has grown bigger. Now it's not only me, but not only this location, but I want to be pan country. I want to go international. I want to go global. I want to introduce more products. So the ambition has now become much bigger. So you need more number of leaders. Because you alone as a promoter cannot take so many ideas to so many places, and you can't be working on so many products, so many markets and all of that. So you need many more leaders to support your entire expansion strategy. So which means by now you should have worked on your leadership grooming and your succession planning, right? So some of those big chunk will now start getting added to your HR agenda when you are trying to expand. Now, interesting challenge that we noticed is the business reaches expansion stage, but HR practices haven't prepared any leaders or there are no successors. And that is when, hey, I have big business opportunities, but when I look back, there are no leaders to take my idea forward. So that is where you start feeling that I think I missed the bus. I should have initiated some of these HR priorities in the previous stage, and they would have helped me in this stage. So therefore, I think any promoter with that kind of a little vision and ambition to grow, I think it's better if they start investing into these HR things a little before. And comes the last stage, which is a renewal stage, where you're sitting back and you're reevaluating whether what got you here will get you there. Whether you need to reinvent yourself, you need to find new ways of working, new methods, or whatever it is. And which means you're going to trigger a lot of changes in the organization. You're going to rock the boat. You're not just going to stay in a very stable manner, just continuing the entire discussion. You're going to now rock the boat. So which means there's a lot of change agenda that you need to be driving, and which means again a lot of people related issues will crop up. So like this, I think there are different set of priorities at each of these stages of the business. If only you can start seeing through the next phase and start preparing your own people related aspects, I think that's the most prudent approach towards people management. Now, while of course I said on paper there are different set of HR priorities at every stage, in our experience as HR footprints, promoters oftentimes, this has been our experience, they reach out to us when they are passing through the mature stage and aspiring to expand. It is at that stage they start realizing that I think this people related agenda is growing much bigger. We alone, either promoter or promoter's family alone, they find it a little difficult to manage that entire spectrum. And that is when they start reaching out to a professional firm like HR Footprint saying, hey, can you come and help us because we have much bigger plans for the future. You please take care of these, HR architecture. So that is usually our experience, which means the earlier stages they would have somehow managed within themselves or with some some kind of assistant or something very bare minimum kind of a preference would have been given to people related aspects till then, but then start realizing that for the future we need to really scale up. This is the point of inflection where we need to bring in professional HR. So that has been our experience usually. So what I shared is what has been our experience.
Exactly.
Now if you ask me what should I recommend, I would recommend that I think at least from the growth stage, if not at the startup stage, because of course we do find a few of our clients who are very visionary kind of a people, very, very far-sighted kind of people. They started signing us up even at the startup stage onwards. Hardly there were 3-4 people and we started working with them. While that is a rarity, at least I would recommend that I think organizations must start approaching people related issues more professionally from the growth stage onwards. Because as I said, talent acquisition, talent retention, culture building, all of that, I think those are the initial phases where you need to start putting some of those things in practice. Much later, if you jump in, now what happens is there is a lot of unlearning to do and then rebuilding has to be done. So if someone invites us at the mature stage, by then many practices would have been established. There is a history, there are ways of doing things there. Now you need to sort of wipe out all of that and rewrite many things. So the effort becomes a little more complex. But if you are a little more proactive, I would recommend start at the growth stage, because that's an absolutely very formative stage of your business. And if you start putting the right practices, they grow with the business. The implications to the founders or promoters, while of course I do suggest that HR should be brought in at the growth stage and carried forward, it does come with its own implications to the promoters. I'll just give you one small example. For example, if some promoter invited us at the mature or expansion stage and we start getting in and start introducing some of the professional HR systems and processes, now what does it mean to the promoter or promoter's family or founder or whoever it is? Some of their discretionary powers that they have exercised till then, some of the people who worked with them very, very closely over the years, some of the people where they are more loyal to the promoters, all those kind of things will also have to fall into the systems and processes. So that means tomorrow if a promoter says, I think this person has been very loyal to me, so I'm going to give 40% hike to this person, this is outside the system. If we start having those aberrations, it's not going to be seen by the rest of the organization in any professional manner. So if you really want to have a professional people management approach, some of those discretionary powers, personalized kind of approach of dealing with a bunch of people has to be stopped. And even promoters and founders also have to start respecting the systems and processes, because that's the only way that you can institutionalize these systems and processes. Not just by having someone like HR Footprints coming and doing it, but your own example as a promoter will carry much, much better message to the rest of the organization to respect these systems and processes. So if you really want to introduce a professional HR approach, just check your own readiness as a promoter, as a founder, whether you are okay to embrace the similar professionalism and curb some of your discretionary kind of decisions. So that's going to be a very, very important change that a founder or a promoter has to ready himself or herself. So if you do that, I think HR has so much of value to offer to the business and business growth.